This is my review of Moby Grape's self-titled debut album. It was released in 1967 and produced by David Rubinson. So I've had this album for a long time, at least since like 2011. Not this particular vinyl copy though. When I first got this album, I got it on a CD. This album's hard to find on CD. They had issues with like their band manager that kept a lot of their albums out of print, and the CD version of it I had was from a label, San Francisco Sound, that I think was owned by their manager. And it was a horrible sounding version of this album. Like, I didn't know this album sounded good until I got the vinyl, because that CD just sounded really like bad. So if you see that version of this album, avoid it because it doesn't sound good at all. But anyway, so I've known this album for a long time. I first kind of got into these guys because I saw their name on a review site, and I thought, well, that's a really interesting name. I want to hear what those guys sound like. I kind of expected them to be like more of a psychedelic band since they're from the 60s and they have kind of a psychedelic sounding name. But they're really not. They're kind of more like country rock, really, in some ways. Probably, I don't know, like a little bit of like blues rock. And so there's kind of some psychedelic elements in like their second album more, but they're not like a super psychedelic band or anything, as you might think with the name. See, I saw their name on a review site, and I just kind of like looked up a couple of their songs on YouTube. I ended up liking the ones that I found on there enough that I got a Greatest Hits album, and then from the Greatest Hits album I went in and got the first album. So Moby Grape has kind of like a long, crazy history that I'll probably go into like little bits of as I go through the albums. The lineup of the band: on guitar you had Jerry Miller, Skip Spence, and Peter Lewis. Jerry Miller was like the lead player. He just died recently, actually, in like July, which is kind of one of the reasons I decided to do these kind of now, a little bit of a tribute to Jerry, because he was a really great player. Skip Spence, I think, played the more like rhythm guitar. He was actually Jefferson Airplane's drummer on their first album, and he was only on like 2 full albums with these guys, I think. Well, I guess he's on Grape Jam, but he had kind of like a Syd Barrett type thing happen when they were doing their second album, and he has a solo album that a lot of people really like. I haven't heard it. I need to get a hold of that, because he's a really cool songwriter based off of the stuff that I've heard in Grape. Peter Lewis, I think, did more of like a finger-picky style guitar, from what I understand. Then you had Bob Mosley on bass and Don Stevenson on drums, both of whom I really like the way they play their instruments. All of them sang, and all of them wrote songs, so there's a lot of talent in this band. And this album, I think, is kind of the only one or like the one where it shows through the most, because after this, like, they started getting into more problems. And the second album, which I probably should talk about that next, but since I'm kind of going into it already, I'll just mention that it adds more like orchestration and different things like that to it. So it kind of, this is the most like pure form of this band's sound, this first album, because it's the only one with all the original members, and it's like just them and not any extra orchestration or anything like that. It's just the guitars, bass, and drums, and them singing. So this is really a great place to start with this band. Just the first album. There's a lot of songs on this album, but most of them are pretty short. I don't think there's anything over like 3 minutes, really. The album opens with "Hey Grandma," which is a song by Jerry Miller and Don Stevenson. They usually like wrote as a team. This one, I think it's a good song. I'll kind of mention it at the end, but I don't think I would have used this to open it if I had my choice, because I think that don't know, I like this song, but it's not really like one of my favorites on the album. If I was picking like my top tier favorites, like I do like it, but I don't know if I would have started the album with it. But it has good energy to it. It has some cool guitar, especially like the little like lick that he used to open it. Just a lot of energy from the band on this song and really on the whole album. Mosley plays a really like driving bass part. I think the song's about like the grandma glasses that the girls were wearing in the '60s. So yeah, good song. Not sure if I would have opened the album with that, though, if I was like had been the person picking the orders. The second song, Mr. Blues, Bob Mosley song. Really strong vocal for Mosley on this. He's one of my favorite singers in the group, which I do kind of have. I probably will talk about this more later, but I have a little bit of trouble telling the voices of Miller and Stevenson, especially like apart. I might be a little bit confused about Skip Spence's voice too. Mosley and Lewis are like the easiest ones to tell who they are, I feel like, when they sing. Yeah, this one, good song. Pretty short song though, like a lot of the stuff on here. Third track, Fall on You, is a Peter Lewis song, and I think this is my favorite like rocker on the album, because this album's basically divided into kind of like rockers and ballads. I would say the first 3 songs are all like rockers. This one is a really catchy song, pretty short really, but I like Lewis's vocal a lot. I like Stevens' drumming on this one a lot. Some cool guitar parts. I really like the guitar solo on it. Just a really great song. Fourth track, 805, and another Miller Stevenson song. This one was, I believe, it was the second song I heard by them when I was just getting into songs. And this one, like, I really liked this song immediately. It's got a really cool guitar part that goes like kind of throughout it, and just the guitars in general in the song are really cool because they're all just 3 playing different things. It all just blends together really cool, and their harmony singing on this I think is really good. These guys kind of their singing took me like a little bit to get used to, because they have kind of like rougher voices a little bit. Like their harmonies are a little crusty sounding, like the kind of later era Birds. But I like all their voices. They're just like, they're not all like super like smooth like Beach Boys type singers or anything. They've got a little more like edge to their voices. So yeah, 805, just a really cool song, kind of more of a ballad, but it's really catchy. One of my favorites by these guys. The fifth song, Come in the Morning, another Mosley song. This one, I think the band's playing is really great on it. Really kicks ass. I really like the bass line. The bass lines are great on like all the songs that Mosley writes, and I really like his vocal on this song as well. Sixth track, Omaha, is a song by Skip Spence, and this was the first track that I heard by these guys. Actually, there's a live version on YouTube that I think was the first thing I watched from them, and it's a really cool song. The 3 guitars really shine on this track, but the whole band's playing great. Just so much energy, and it's a really catchy song, but it's just kind of a unique song, like structure-wise. Skip Spence just had a really kind of cool way of writing. 7th track, Naked If I Want To, is this short kind of 55-minute like joke thing to close out the first side of the album, but it's actually really good though. Like it's funny. It's really short, but the playing's really cool. It's catchy. The harmony singing's on it's good. So even though it's like a little short joke, it's still really good. The 8th track, Someday, that begins side 2, is a Miller Stevenson Spence song, and this one's kind of more of a ballad. But it's got really cool playing by the band, a really cool like atmosphere through it. Towards the end of the song, Mosley like comes in singing and kind of like takes over the lead, and the song just like really takes off at that point. And then it's got this really cool guitar outro to it where Miller's playing these almost like jazzy parts. So that's another really cool track. Next, you have Ain't No Use, Miller Stevenson song, which is kind of a short, catchy country rock track, and that one I like a lot as well. The 10th track, Sitting by the Window, is my favorite song on here. I'm pretty sure it was on the greatest hits that I had, so I was familiar with it before getting this album. It's a Peter Lewis song. I like his vocal a lot on here. He has like kind of a lot of vibrato to his voice, just a really cool voice. I like the bass playing a lot on this song. There's some really cool stuff going on there. All the three guitars are doing cool things. Yeah, the song has a really cool atmosphere. This is probably the song on this album that I think gets the closest to being sort of psychedelic, but really catchy song too. So yeah, Sitting by the Window, can't say enough good things about that song. The 11th track, Changes, Miller Stevenson song. Really like the bass line in this one. It's a catchy rocker. Not sure who's singing on this one. I always thought it was Skip Spence, but then I read that it was a Miller Stevenson song, so now I'm like, oh, it must be one of them. So I'm not sure, but I like the vocal on it, kind of a rougher, raspy lead, but a good song. 12th track, Lazy Me. Another song by Bob Mosley. It's got a cool little guitar intro. It's one of those songs where the title throws me off because I don't think it says Lazy Me like in the lyrics. But it's got the kind of I don't know, the vocals of it are kind of different. They're more like, I don't know, like dramatic, like almost like this operatic type thing going on, but it's really catchy still. It's sort of more of a ballad, but I don't know, it's kind of like a faster type of ballad. Then the 13th and final track, Indifference, Skip Spence song, and this is just another one where everybody's like playing crazy good on it. It's a really catchy song, but another like strangely kind of structured song a little bit from Skip Spence. So I think that's a really strong track to close on. That said, I think that like if I had been the one doing the track order on this album, I probably would have opened with Indifference, because I think like it's just a stronger, kind of a stronger track than Hey Grandma, and I know that on the live, one of the live CDs I have on this, it has like their Monterey Pop concert on there, and they opened that concert with this song. So I just think it's a really strong like opening track, because it's so energetic, and they just really like kick ass when they're playing it. So I would have opened with that, and I think I would have closed the album with Sitting by the Window and put Hey Grandma somewhere like in the middle of the album. But yeah, Moby Grape debut album. Overall, it's a great album. I will admit that like when I started listening to these guys, their sound took me a little while to get into, but once I got into it, like I just really liked it, and like this album, not a bad song on here. I think all the songs on here are really good. I don't know if this is my favorite album by them though, because I really like some of the other ones as well, but I don't think that like this is definitely the like the purest Moby Grape album. Like this is them at their like I mean, this is the only one where they're really like functioning like this before they start losing people. And like I said, the next one, I guess they're all kind of together, but there's a lot of like extra instruments and stuff like that. So this is really their only album that's like them as a 5-piece, like playing all their stuff and doing their vocals and stuff, because after this they would kind of start adding stuff, and then they would kind of start falling apart. So in some ways, like this is the Moby Grape album. But yeah, just a really great album, and definitely if you're gonna listen to this band, just either start with the greatest hits or here. I would just say start with this album and skip the greatest hits, but yeah, great album. If you're into like 60s era music and you haven't heard these guys, then I can't recommend this highly enough.